Welcome to another episode. What are you reading? What are you writing? Thank you so much for joining us today. We so appreciate it. Both my guest, David Rabin. Did I pronounce that correctly, David?
It's Rabin.
Rabin. David Rabin and I are delighted that you are here with us. If this is your first time, I am your host, Karen E. Osborne. We've been doing this about 1.5 years now and just met amazing writers, and you're going to meet an amazing writer today. As a matter of fact, look how cool this is. He sent me his book in the mail. Yeah, so he's going to tell you all about his novel, his debut novel. Let me just tell you what one of a prestigious reviewer thought about this book. This is Kirkus Review, and they said that Danger of Judgment is well-developed characters drive Rabin's taut thriller. The story builds to a lengthy, sensational final act brimming with well-earned suspense. A sharply defined, engrossing cast elevates this crime caper. Wow.
Thank you for reading it so nicely.
Wow. One of the first things that hit me when I was exploring about who you are and looking at your, going through your book and seeing what people say about your book is that you were a trial lawyer, right, for 30 years?
I was.
And so how come this isn't a trial thriller, a legal thriller?
No offense to the lawyers out there. I spent 33 years surrounded by lawyers all the time. And when I retired, I decided I'm done with law. I am moving on to the next thing. I've tried to forget as much law as I can. So when I decided to write a book, I thought I'm going to do something else for a change. 30 years was long enough.
You were done. You were done with that.
I was done with it.
That is cool. So tell us about your debut novel.
Well, it is a crime thriller set in Chicago in 1987. It follows two Chicago police detectives, an older man and a younger woman, who are investigating a series of heroin-related murders in Chicago. And it starts out as a local issue, or so they thought. But before long, they figure out that they are now enmeshed in a much larger conspiracy that goes back 15 years to the Vietnam War.
Wow.
And ultimately, they find themselves caught in the crossfire between the drug lord they're investigating and a former soldier who seeks revenge on him. That's the thumbnail.
That sounds really, really cool. I read a lot of thrillers, and as does my husband. And so I was showing him the book, and he, this is like his kind of book, mine too, but his kind of book especially. He was very, very intrigued by this book. Tell us a little bit more about your protagonist, your main, or both of them.
Both of them are protagonists.
Okay, so tell me about both of them. Tell me a little bit about their motivation, who are they?
Well, there's, as I mentioned, I think there's an older male detective and a younger female detective.
Yeah, so what's the older guy's name?
The older guy's name is Bernie Bernadelli. That's a nickname. He's been a Chicago cop for approximately 30 years. I never give an exact amount, but that's pretty much my concept of him. He is in the Violent Crimes Division of the Chicago Police Department, which means he's doing homicides, robberies, things like that. And he has basically seen everything there is to see, but he has managed not to get jaded by it. He tries to keep things in perspective. He hasn't lost his humanity. And one of his, I would say, one of his essential characteristics is that he feels a strong desire to help people. So he has tried to preserve his humanity in the face of lots of horrible things over 3 decades.
Yeah.
The other protagonist is named Marcel DeSantis. She's about 20 years younger than Bernie, late 20s approximately. She has a different personality from Bernie. I would say I would describe her as being very smart, very tough. She is well aware of her power and her agency. And one of her defining characteristics, really, for this story is that she is a female violent crimes detective in a big city police department in the 1980s. And she encounters sexism both within and outside of the police department. And part of her persona is the way she deals with it.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't easy back then. She didn't have an easy time
No,
of it. Do you see this as the beginning of a series?
I do. And
Oh,
I'm working on the second one right now.
Oh, that is awesome. So they're gonna stay together as partners.
I don't know. You're going to have to get to the end of the first book to find out. How's that? Not everyone survives the first book, but we'll see.
We'll see. Okay. Very intriguing. Series are, I love series. Like I follow Michael Connelly's, his Bosch, all of his Bosch books, and series are fun as long as people like the first one. If they don't like the first one, series can be a killer.
Yeah, you got to hook them.
You got to hook them.
When you're writing that series, you're thinking, okay, I've got my first book figured out, but what about books 2 and 3? And what do I need to do in this book to properly set up all of those? And do I want to do something I'm going to regret later that it's not going to work in the future? So, there's a lot that goes into that.
Yes, there is a lot that goes into it. So was this the very first novel you ever wrote? Or was this the first novel you got published?
First one I ever wrote.
So do you know how amazing that is? You and I are in a special class because I read an article and said that very few first novels, it's a tiny percentage of first novels that get published. It's usually like sitting there. And my first one did, and your first one did. My second novel, it didn't get published until number 3. It wasn't quite ready for prime time, I guess, and I shoved it to the side. But anyway, we're in rare company, so that is very cool. First novel out the door and published. That is awesome.
It was actually the first fiction that I had written probably since about the 4th grade. So, legal writing is not supposed to be fiction. So
no, it's not. It can be though.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But not with somebody ethical. So
there you go.
Yeah. So this and so the work in progress. Is there any little thing you could tell us about it? Any little tantalizing?
Well, I like to write with multiple subplots. People will see that when they read the first book. I like to write multiple perspectives because you can tell parts of the story if you have a bunch of different characters. Things that one single character isn't going to see or be involved in. So I like that kind of structure. And it's going to involve a murder. That's not a spoiler, right? It'll involve a murder.
You're a homicide detective, so yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. I mean, this is not a book about shoplifting. So it's going to start out with a murder that is witnessed by a single woman who is terrified that she has witnessed this murder. And that's how it starts out.
Cool. And do you see when it might emerge?
I'm a really slow writer. It took me 27 years to write my first one. I'm going to try to do the second a little bit faster than that.
A
little faster. And I'm pretty OC about it, so I'm not going to put it out there until I'm satisfied that it's the best it can be.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Your fans, your readers will wait for you. They will happily wait for you, even though they grouse, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? They will wait for you and they will buy it. So not to worry, you just do what you're doing.
All right, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, so this is What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? And we're all avid readers. You can't be a writer if you're not an avid reader. So I wonder if you could make some recommendations to our audience.
Well, I write in the crime genre. So I'm going to recommend 3 authors and 3 books. You already mentioned one of them, Stephen Hunter, and the book is Point of Impact. There's the first one. The next one is Michael Connelly's The Black Echo.
Yes.
And the third one is Lee Child, Killing Floor. And that's the reason I chose those 3 is because, first of all, they're all fantastic writers. And each one has written a long series that goes back 20 years or so. And those are the first books in the series. And, I recommend people start with the first book because that's where the character is introduced and you start to see the basis for his character. And if those books don't hook them on the series, probably nothing will, but I think people will get hooked on the series if they read those.
It's funny you say that because I started the Connelly Bosch books in the middle. And then I realized I had to go back. I wanted to understand the motivation. So I went back and started the series at the beginning. And it was very satisfying and worth doing that. So I agree with you. It's good to start at the beginning. Very good.
The other thing I'll add about those 3, they all have different writing styles and they all work. If you look at them on a continuum, Stephen Hunter writes long flowing sentences and paragraphs, and he's a beautiful writer. Michael Connelly is more sparse, and then Lee Child is the sparsest of all, I would say.
Yeah, and that kind of fits their characters, doesn't it? The spark, it kind of goes with who the main character is as well. How would you describe your writing style?
Sparse.
So sparse.
Yeah, you learn to write concisely when you're a trial lawyer because judges are busy. You do not want to be the guy who makes them read a lot of unnecessary words. And a lot of courts have page limits and word limits. So you are forced to be concise. And over 30 years, I got in that mode. I'm going to write the shortest sentences, shortest paragraphs I can, 1-syllable words instead of 2-syllable words. And that carried over into the novel.
Yeah, very good. I write like that too. I'm a sparse writer. I like page turners, so short chapters, sparse writing. I do appreciate beautiful literary writing with rich. My son is a writer and he's a literary writer. And his sentences are so gorgeous, but that's just not me.
Now, and it works differently for different genres too, I think so.
Yes, this is true. This is very true. Well, this has been a pleasure. Now, if everybody wants to meet you, they want to find you, where would they find you? Besides, now that they've met you, they want to find out more about you, where would they go?
Well, my website is davidrabinauthor.com. Rabin is Rabin. I'm on Facebook at David Rabin Author. And if they want to email me, it's David@David Rabin Author. And I try to respond to emails within 24 hours.
Oh, that's very cool. See how quick that was? So this is a book that you guys need to buy and read. And then you should tell David, you should write him. But also, I have to tell you, we live for reviews. Reviews make such a difference for us as authors. And so if you enjoy the book, please take a moment to write a really good review on Goodreads and Amazon and Barnes and Noble, because it makes a difference for all of us in the writing world. Thank you so much for staying with us today. I hope that I will see you next time on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing?